They heard that. What's up, you guys? I'm going to do the intro, so I'm going to try to mimic Courtney as much as I can here. There's a spot on your screen that makes me look like I have my unibrow back.
Nope, it's because I broke my phone. Carson goes, how did you break your phone? I'm like, I dropped it. Like she does all the time. So happy Monday, you guys.
Yeah, look at her. This is how it goes when we try to dance. He's like, yeah, you got it. Oh, wait, here, I'm going to try to take over. How we doing, y'all? Happy Monday. Hope everyone had a fantastic weekend. So today, well, Mr. Nate, you keep it rolling, brother. We always appreciate you. So today we're going to talk a little bit. Obviously, we took it a little bit easier, a little bit lighter on Friday. And those have been with us, like Nate, that's been with us through this whole sequence of events. Know that we've been juggling a few things that have been going on, right? Like between obviously quarantine, between obviously the protests, everything else that's been going on, and then obviously things that have been in our neck of the woods regarding CrossFit and our business. And so we were talking, went for a walk, just kind of lead into this thing and let Courtney kind of elaborate more on that. But we were talking and going for a walk, and we've been juggling things back and forth and what feels right for us and what we feel we want to elicit best for our gym, our business, and our community. And so we've been running, we've both been having our own internal conflicts and everything else. And so we were talking and walking each other through a lot of the processes and everything that we take with a lot of our clients of going through the procedures and kind of understanding of why we're, what's up, Jess? Why we're having to, where and how are we making the decisions that we're making them from, right? And I think oftentimes we talked about this through a lot of our episodes, is understanding that oftentimes, not this thing again, is we try to make decisions, and where we think we're making decisions from is up here, but really it's based off of more the feelings and the emotions that is driving the machine that's behind those decisions. And so the more we can understand and actually have a procedure to walk us through that, and have the wherewithal of having a second party, a coach that's there to identify things and actually ask you different questions, can help tremendously as you go through this process.
Yeah, so it was funny because I was I had a chat with one of our members on Friday, and we were just kind of going through life and shift in what we do and talking about all the things. And I said to her, I said, often we think that we make decisions out of logic, or we want to make decisions out of logic, but we actually make all of our decisions from how we feel, right? We make them from feelings. And I said that, and it was one of those things where like I knew it, but I never actually said it out loud. And I was like, oh, we should talk about that, right? So it was interesting because I said that to someone on Friday. And then I found myself going through that today. So the struggle that I'm having right now is sort of disconnecting the actions of one person and things that supposedly he has or hasn't done in the CrossFit brand. The CEO, right? If you don't know any of this, there's some things that he's done that are not in alignment with our values. And so I was having the struggle of like, can I disconnect CrossFit and what it means to us and what it's been for 10 years and what it is to so many people with the actions of this person, right? And so we were kind of walking through it. And I think what's really interesting to understand is a lot of people kind of ask us what we do, but they don't really understand what we do, right? And so for us, it's understanding that in a coaching relationship, right? Like, yes, we're CrossFit coaches, but we coach on, I've decided we're going to call it human performance, right? Like we coach through our shift program on all of the things in your life and how do you be the best version of yourself, right? How do you learn how to feel differently? How do you learn how to actually feel again? How do you pull back the layers and understand yourself? And what does that look like, right? And so for a lot of it is understanding that even with the most awareness and consciousness, and you can be like, you can be this person on this level of thinking that you understand yourself, we will all run into places where it's always beneficial to have a coach, right? And it's interesting how much we coach each other all the time, right? Like Friday we went on a walk and Brandon was in a very like frustrated state, and and it's funny on how we even noticed how we each take coaching, right? Like I told him to take a deep breath and he literally said, I'm not effing breathing right now, because he wasn't in that place, right? And I was like, okay, well, where you need it, but this is a growth thing. And so today we were walking through it, and he was like, okay, so we were breaking down, he was asking me questions. Well, what's the connection here? What do you think is going on here? What do you think is going on there? And so it was very interesting because my brain, my logic can say this person does not represent what this brand is and this mission and this movement that we have attached ourselves to, that's created an amazing community and growth and change and all of that stuff, right? So my logical brain, and I think I said today literally out loud, I know this doesn't make sense, but what I'm saying is my logical brain knows this doesn't make sense, but the way it makes me feel is out of alignment with the way I want to feel, right? And so I have a feeling about CrossFit and what it is. And I'll just tell you guys this because this is a big deal, right? So when we started CrossFit, and the reason I think CrossFit and our brand, particularly as Surge, has been such an impactful thing, was community, right? Because when people walk into our doors, and not every CrossFit gym, but a lot of CrossFit gyms, right? Like, I can't speak for the masses, but like when you walk into Surge, there's a welcoming, there is a connection. Everyone knows your name. Everybody says hi to you. Like, there's a community and a safety, right? There's a safety that comes when you come in there. It doesn't matter who you are, what your journey is, what you're doing. There's this safety of like, we welcome you and we love you with open arms, right? And so that to me is what CrossFit is. And especially in the beginning, it's 111, by the way, you guys. If you don't know about angel numbers, that's a big deal. It's Carson's number. Anyway, so like, to us, it's that welcoming and that like-mindedness of like, if we go out of town, we go to a CrossFit gym because we have the assumption that those people are very similar to our beliefs and our structure and our integrity and our values and the things that we believe in, right? Because it's not squats and pull-ups, right? It's so much more than that. And so to me, I'm like, that's what CrossFit stands for, right? It stands for integrity and value and community and all of these things. And so that can't go away, right? Like, one person cannot change that for our community and what we are. But it's also aligning with, I had a belief in what CrossFit HQ's values were, and they probably still are that. But now that I'm hearing certain things about the leader, I'm going to call him a leader loosely, about the CEO, it's made me kind of question my beliefs. So kind of walk them through some of the questions you asked me to help shine light on what was going on.
So, as Courtney was expressing this, you can see it kind of falls into that, that crazy eight kind of thing we talked about before, right? Like for what Courtney was experiencing that time, because right now there's a lot of questions that are being thrown out. Like, there's a lot of things that we don't know. And so what she's striving for is certainty, right? Like, she's really striving for certainty. And also on the aspect of like, I also want to be heard in a lot of ways. Would that be correct?
Oh, I want communication.
Yes.
Right?
And so
like, I want to be heard, but I also...
a little bit of lack of significance regarding in that realm.
Connection. I feel like there's lack of connection to what the brand CrossFit actually stands for.
Well, I mean, as far as on the side of, do you feel lack of communication of, I should be more valued of an affiliate as a coach or whatever, so I can get more information?
Kind of. I think I feel uncertain in what's been going on behind closed doors and understanding if it is something that we align to or something that we don't align to. So uncertainty, big thing right there.
Okay. So usually for what we do on there is, we'll say certainty on this side. So Courtney's striving for certainty, right? And so she's having an aspect of also feeling out of control, which I can really 100% with this right now, right? Like, we don't know exactly what's going on. We don't know exactly what's coming down the pipeline. It seems like every other day there's new information that get exposed and all these other things that happen. But what happens so Courtney is striving for certainty. And so typically for her to feel a level of certain, or just in people in general, is the emotion that tends to respond is her emotional home is a little bit more aggravation, frustration,
anger. No, anger, I definitely go to anger, like before those type I go to sadness.
Like that type of emotional response, right? And so in that moment in time, like, it's right. She's clinging for an aspect of certainty, clinging for an aspect of, I need some sort of aspect. So oftentimes, like, anger is a really easy way to get certain. I know how I feel right now. I can make myself feel kind of in an element of almost significant in a standpoint because I'm feeling this emotional component.
Well, I know what anger feels like. Yes. And it's funny because this time I haven't actually gone to anger. But the thing with certainty, you guys, is that oftentimes we will go back to an emotion that we're used to feeling, even if we don't like the emotion. We'll go to sadness, we'll go to anger, we'll go to numbing, we'll go to that because it's certain. We know what it feels like, right? And it's like when we are lacking certainty, we'll go to that emotional home, that certainty, because it fills that need for certainty, even if it's in a way that isn't in alignment with actually what you want to do or where you want to go.
And so seeing that is oftentimes you can see that anger, that frustration, that aspect of wanting certainty was blocking her from also seeing the entire mountain range of what was going on, because what we were running into was CrossFit, the brand, and CrossFit of my thought process around it means so many beautiful things, right? Like they mean so many. I've been able to connect with so many people. It's changed your life. It showed you a different methodology to train. It opened up your eyes of not just you as a person of moving around, of what your figure looked like, what body size you were, what your calorie count was, but more of showing you the power of who you are as a strong woman.
Yeah,
right?
Totally.
But the other side of it was, well, it can't be all those things if the CEO is attached to it, right? Like if I put these things in that realm, I have to correlate both of those things together. And we were having a hard time of disconnecting and disassociating of, oh, well, if I still love CrossFit, the brand, I still have to attach myself to the CEO. Right.
Well, and I think we talked about this. There's like, we talked about your values and your beliefs and your identities, and all of this is spinning right now for us, right? And so I think there was an interesting thing where I was trying to figure out of if his values don't align with my values, but my values of what this community are completely align. There was a part of me that didn't want to give him credit, because Brandon asked me this, like, can good people do bad things and can bad people do good things? Like, they can, right? And so, but it was like, well, if I have to give him credit for building this brand, I had a really hard time with that because I'm in a very unrestful state about him as a person. And so it was like, okay, well, how do I still love this brand and love what we've created, but like almost take the power back of like, he didn't create this, right? Like he started the movement, but the movement was created so much more by everyone else in it, us and the other affiliates and all the athletes that walk into a CrossFit gym and what it has represented to people. And so it was interesting because Miranda was walking me through like, well, is it your values? Is it your beliefs? Is it your like, right? Of like, well, what's actually out of alignment right now? And then you realize it's a little bit of everything, right? So if you listen to what we've talked about, we talk about awareness, we talk about observations, we did all of that. We talk about judgment, like where am I judging? We talk about, and then we talk about your 6 human needs and how does that play in? And then your values and how does that play in? And then your patterns and your belief system and your identities and all of this stuff, right? And so everything that we've coached on for the last like 75 episodes, this all played out in one 45-minute conversation of what are all the things that are out of alignment and not moving in the direction I want them to, and then what's the final thing, right? And so we walked through all of that. We talked about all of that stuff, and at the end I was like, I had this sort of like, this is the cool thing about coaching. He held space for me to talk. And he asked me questions that led me to my answers, right? Like that's the beauty of what we do as coaches is that like we hold space for you to be safe and to ask you questions. You're the only one that knows the answers for what you need in your life, right? Anything you're going through, you're the only one that knows the answers. But when you have a coach and when you have someone that can hold space for you and ask you questions that make you come up with what's actually going on. And like for me, it was connecting my feelings to my logic and to my words, right? And so for us at the end, I was like, okay, I can... Surge is a bigger thing than just CrossFit, right? If you guys have listened to us for 75 days, we have talked about exercise, probably not at all, right? And so like our mission of what we do and what we do for people, and I was like, I can completely accept that we are moving forward like as Surge because that's who we are, and that CrossFit can be part of what we do, but not like this overarching mission of all that we do. And I was like, oh, I think there could have been a lot of that already, that resistance coming up inside of us of like, we're so much more than just CrossFit coaches. And so it was really interesting because I said to him at the end, I was like, I had no idea that I was feeling all of those things until we walked through the questions and he asked me questions and he held space and he challenged me. And some of it I was like, yeah, but I don't want to tell you, right? Like that's the thing of like, when you're going through this stuff, you don't always like the answers and you don't always like the way you're feeling and you don't always love like where that's coming from, right? And I mean, I think I said at one point, I was like, well, that's just my protector, right? Like, but once you have awareness around that, and that's what we want to teach you guys, is how do you have awareness around your life to where when challenges show up, you can take a step back and you can observe it and you can identify like, oh, well, this is what's happening here. This is what's going on, right? Because with that comes consciousness, comes awareness, comes self-mastery, right? Like that's what we want to teach in Shift. That's what we do teach in Shift is self-mastery and understanding through a loving community and a coaching relationship where we get to help you and hold space. Like Jess said at the beginning of this thing, thanks for being a soft place to land, right? Like she's going through a lot of stuff right now. And we had a conversation this morning of like, if you just need a session to be and let us help you through this, like we're here for you, right? And so I think that's the beauty of what we get to do as coaches. And it was just cool to like be on the client side of that because we both have coaches and mentors, but we do it for each other all the time. And so it was really interesting to walk through that and then feel this peace. Like I was stressed and frustrated and all of these and tired and all of these things. And an hour later, I was like, oh, I have a clear vision again of like what the best version of me is and the best version of Serge is and holding space for each other and being able to do that was just super cool.
Well, I think, you know, and I was like Courtney said, I was there last week, right? Like, and I was not in an open place last week of like, I don't want to be coached right now, right? Like I was in a much more of like, I just want to be in this bottle that's not really allowing me to do anything, but I want to be in this place so I can just express myself, even though it wasn't doing me any good, right? But in the same standpoint, it's being able to do that for each other and also have the wherewithal that the home, because my home used to be that, right? Like I would fall down that pattern and it would just compound and get harder and harder and harder. And then it would build within inside me. And then sooner or later, it would erupt onto her. It would erupt onto my kids. It would erupt onto other members of our community and so on and so forth because I didn't have the wherewithal and the understanding of what was going on, right? And so being able to have that ability of being able to see that, be able to kind of honor, like what I said last week, I didn't want to allow myself to get out of that. And I knew what she was trying to do. She was trying to help me. And, you know, as the day went on and as we went through it and I opened up and was able to talk about it a little bit more and, you know, express that, yes, you know what and honestly, Carson and I went into the gym on Friday. I hit the punching bag, right? Like I needed that stuff to move. And she identified that. She's like, look, if you're not going to talk to me, that's okay. But you need to go release it, right? And like we call it an anger release, right? Like I needed to go in and get physically those things out of my system to enable to allow me to process them and see them from a different point of view, right? Because oftentimes we're in such a reactionary mode and we're focusing on so much of, well, I know the right answer here, but you know what? My emotional state right now isn't going to allow me to experience that and come from a place of creativity and allow me to see those things, right? Because yet again, how much turmoil and fear and everything else has been kind of rolling through all of our lives for the last 3 months, right? There hasn't been a lot of creativity and a lot of creation also in our world in those last 3 months, right? Because when we're landlocked and we're in that fear place and we're in anger, we're in frustration, we're all those kind of things, it's really hard to see the beauty of what we can actually elicit and come up with in that moment in time and also set ourselves free, right? Like it's the same, like what I think what we came up with under that is the result that we came up with is basically the same result we had leading into the conversation, right? Mm-hmm. But your feelings surrounding that and your outcome of feeling that, did that feel a lot different by the end of that?
Yeah. Well, some of the understanding of like, why am I feeling this way, right? Because, and I think that's the thing that's so interesting when we talk about teaching people how to feel, right? Because if you're watching this, you might not know that you don't know how to feel. I didn't know that I didn't know how to feel, right? And we've seen this with so many of our clients of like, we have this, these preconceived notions of I can feel this. It's okay to feel happy. It's okay to feel joy. It's okay to feel this. But then all of a sudden we're like, oh, I can't feel sad. I can't feel angry. Like those are bad emotions and they're not. Like they're just lower vibrating energies. But you have to feel it all. And that's what I said to him on Friday. I said, you don't have to, like, I don't want you to push these down and pretend like you're not there. I want you to go hit stuff. I want you to yell. I want you to, whatever you need to do, I want you to feel it and let it move. Because when you let it move, when it's not stuck in there, when you let the frustration, you let like the anger, anger, you let the sadness, like when you let it come out, then you can let in the good. But if your body's all junked up with all the bad, the stress and the frustration and the worry, and like you cannot let good in, love and light cannot get in when your body is constipated with anger and fear and all of that stuff. So it's like you have to understand that it's safe to feel it, right? And I was talking to one of our members this morning about like, sometimes you need to let that come out in a place where you feel safe, where you feel held, where you know that like, okay, well, this stuff comes up, I don't have to figure out how to deal with it by myself. And that's what we do with our clients of like, it's scary to feel some of those emotions because we taught ourselves not to. But once you know that in a safe container, you can feel that stuff, it's life-changing because you're like, I feel so much better, right? Again, why I teach breath work, because it allows people to feel that stuff without the stories and in a place where they feel safe and they feel held. And then they're like, I feel so much better, you know? And I think that's the biggest thing to understand is like feeling the not so happy, high vibe energies is the most important thing you can do in your life.
Well, I think it allows us to be understanding that we're human, right? And I think that's the part we also talked about on this whole thing is, you know, like, and it kind of falls in that same thing of like good people can also do bad things, right? Depending on your state, like happy people can be angry, right? Angry people can also be happy, right? Like state drives a lot of different things, what we're driving for our needs. All these things, yet again, we talked about for the last 75 episodes, creates us as human beings, right? But I think when it comes down to understanding that you can remove the terminology of bad and good, right? And I think that's the part that we oftentimes run into is I shouldn't be feeling these things. These are bad emotions, right? Like I when I was 5 years old and I cried, my parents lit into me and like told me to never cry, never do these things. I need to be strong. Like for myself, it was always, I need to be a man. I need to do all these kind of things. And it's understanding like, well, no, that's just you experiencing the spectrum of human beings and emotions, right? Like that's the thing that makes us human beings, and being able to honor that for yourself, right? Like yet again, we don't want people to like dwell in them and overindulge in them and understand, but at the same time, if you can understand them and understand that those things are coming up for you, right? Like what was that, Thursday? I cried on film, right? Like I couldn't get through the aspect of like talking about our community and what it meant for me. But I know when I start getting my emotional peak, my tank of my emotions are overflowing, which are coming out in other ways, right? Like at that moment, they were coming up as tears. Other moments, it comes out as me needing to go scream, needing me to go hit stuff. That isn't in a poison, toxic way of projecting and taking it out on others. Unfortunately, I've had to learn the hard way through that. And so we don't want you to do that.
But anger and aggression are different. Yeah. Just know that. Anger and aggression are two different feelings. Anger is a completely safe energy.
It's a natural.
Right. Anger is fine. It's when you take your anger out on someone else, that's aggression, not so good, right? But most of us don't know the difference between anger and aggression, right? We're like, well, my parents got angry and they yelled at me, hit me, did whatever, whoever, right? And then we think anger is aggression, so we're afraid to be angry. Anger is not a negative emotion. It's a very powerful, very creative emotion if you manage it, understand it, and stay inside of yourself with it. Stay inside of your own bubble.
So, you know, but yet again, it's being able to look at the full mountain range, not just the one peak of where your emotional state is at, and be able to calm yourself, bring yourself out of the mix of like the muck of what's going on in your life, and be able to come from a place of actual creativity and actual inspired action that feels right for you, right? Because oftentimes, and with this, the part we see all the times with our clients is more times than not, it's within the moment decision, and it's based off of what you're feeling right now in this moment in time. And then you look back of like, ah, shoot, I should not have made that decision. I overreacted, right? Like I reacted in an instant instead of allowing yourself to kind of process. But at the same time, when you learn this, you're able to make decisions also quicker from the place of intuition, actual inspired action, right? Because initially on there, it's like, well, I want you to get to the space. I want you to be able to actually see what feelings are arising from you so you can actually see what's coming up to make an intelligent decision for yourself. As time goes on, it's the same thing of being able to identify the sensations and the emotions and everything else that are going on there. Sooner than later, like something will happen, you're able to identify, okay, this is happening, going on, this is the direction I want to go. But initially, it's slowing down, being aware, asking questions, doing those kind of things. And that's the power of having a coach and having somebody from the outside that's going to hold you to the thing that you want to hold yourself to, and ask you the questions that you don't want to ask yourself even in that moment in time, or you don't even know that you want to ask yourself that, right? Because the questions that we ask ourselves are habitual, just like anything else. And oftentimes, if we're seeing same patternings get created in our lives, it's because we're asking the same question. So oftentimes we need somebody else from an outside perspective to ask a different question, right? Like we've been married for 10 years. I'm going to say that. We haven't legally. I'm going to say that just so I don't get myself in trouble here. But right? We know how each other work. We know how each other are, what we're typically thinking, what's going on in that moment in time. But at the same time, having somebody just simply ask you a question, right? Like it's not the same like, well, actually you're thinking it like this way. You need to do it this way, right? It's just, well, I'm asking you a question. You figure it out for yourself because you do hold all the answers.
Yeah. So, all right. We could obviously go on this tangent forever, but we love you guys. We appreciate you guys. Biggest takeaway is understand that you want to and you believe you make decisions from logic. You think you make them from your brain. Your brain is rooted in fear. All of your decisions actually come from your emotions. So we need to get in connection with our emotions so we can actually understand why we're making decisions and make them from an aligned, inspired place. Okay. We love you guys. Happy Monday. If you need anything, reach out. We're here for you guys. If you want to know what a coaching session looks and feels like, just let us know. So appreciate it and see you tomorrow.
Thank y'all.
Have a good Monday.